When I look at the current landscape of the show, based on the notes and hints we have received, I do not see romance blossoming. I see a highly dangerous deadlock of emotional warfare. We are looking at two potential weddings on the horizon, but if you ask me, these are not going to be joyous celebrations. They look like ticking time bombs. The writers are setting up these couples in a way that feels incredibly precarious. On one hand, we have Carly and Valentine, a pairing born out of secrecy, danger, and rebellion. On the other hand, we have Molly and Cody, a seemingly sweet and supportive duo whose foundation might actually be built on unspoken resentments and external pressures. Both of these relationships are walking right into a trap, a complete emotional deadlock, where every single step forward could trigger an unforeseen fallout. You have to wonder if anyone in this town actually thinks ahead, or if they are all just blinded by the temporary thrill of the chase. Let us start by dissecting the absolute mess that is Carly and Valentine. Now that Valentine is finally a free man, the thrill of their secret romance is entirely gone. They no longer have to hide in the shadows, sneak around attics, or pretend they despise each other in public. They can openly hold hands at the local diner and plan a grand wedding. But could it be that the only thing keeping them together was the adrenaline of the forbidden? Once the dust settles, they have to face the harsh reality of their everyday lives. And let me tell you guys, the reality of being with Valentine is not a fairy tale. It is a constant state of looking over your shoulder. Carly might think she has tamed the beast, but a man with his psychological motive for control and dominance does not just change overnight. He has a dark, twisted history, and bringing that darkness into her home is a calculated move that could destroy her entirely. Of course, we cannot ignore the massive, looming shadows of Sunny and Jason. If you think for 1 second that Sunny is going to sit back and watch Carly marry a man he absolutely despises, you are severely underestimating his need for control. Sunny and Jason view Valentine as a lethal threat, a man who has repeatedly proven that he will cross any moral boundary to get what he wants. Jason, in particular, is fiercely protective of Carly and has never trusted anyone who operates outside his own strict code of loyalty. He knows the kind of psychological warfare Valentine is capable of waging, having witnessed the destruction he left behind in previous years. It looks like Sunny and Jason will launch their own calculated move to drive a wedge between the couple before they can even make it to the altar. They will dig up old dirt, expose hidden financial crimes, or perhaps even manipulate dangerous underground situations to make it appear as though Valentine is slipping back into his old, villainous ways. The unforeseen fallout of Carly alienating her two oldest protectors, the men who have saved her life countless times, for a romance that might not even last the winter, is a disaster waiting to happen. However, the ultimate threat to this impending marriage is not a mob boss or a hitman. The true danger comes in a much smaller, far more emotionally volatile package, and her name is Charlotte. If you ask me, Charlotte is the absolute biggest obstacle in this entire scenario. This young woman has been through immense psychological trauma, constantly being ripped away from stability and forced to adapt to her father's chaotic lifestyle. She has developed a deeply ingrained psychological motive to protect her father at all costs, while simultaneously punishing anyone she feels is trying to replace her or take him away. Charlotte is not going to simply smile, hold a bouquet of flowers, and welcome Carly as her new stepmother. She will view Carly as an invader, a direct threat to her exclusive bond with Valentine. We only need to look at history to see exactly how this is going to play out. Remember how much Charlotte adored Nina? Nina was a mother figure to her, a source of immense comfort and love. But the moment Charlotte felt betrayed, the moment she believed Nina had turned against Valentine by exposing his secrets, that love instantly morphed into vicious hatred. Charlotte viewed Nina as a traitor, and the shattered trust between them was never fully repaired. Then we have the terrifying situation with Anna. When Valentine and Anna were together, Charlotte did not just politely disagree with the relationship, she actively engaged in a campaign of terror against Anna. She stalked her, broke into her home, and orchestrated deeply disturbing events to drive Anna away. Charlotte has a proven track record of using psychological warfare to eliminate the women in Valentine's life. Why on earth would Carly be any different? This brings us to a critical fork in the road regarding how this marriage could collapse. Let us explore scenario A. In this scenario, it looks like Charlotte will take a subtle, highly manipulative approach Instead of throwing tantrums, she will play the role of the sweet, innocent, traumatized daughter. She will subtly plant seeds of doubt in Valentine's mind, making him believe that Carly is neglecting her or treating her poorly when he is not looking. It could be that Charlotte stages small accidents or misplaces important items, quietly framing Carly as the villain in her daily life. Valentine, who is blinded by his overwhelming guilt regarding his daughter, will inevitably take Charlotte's side. This implies that the marriage will suffer a slow, agonizing death by 1,000 cuts, with Carly constantly defending herself against the teenager's calculated move, ultimately leading to a bitter and resentful divorce just weeks after they say their vows. Alternatively, we have scenario B, which is far more explosive. Could it be that Charlotte decides subtlety takes too long and opts for absolute destruction? In this scenario, Charlotte orchestrates a massive, undeniable trap designed to publicly humiliate Carly or put her in physical danger. She might leak sensitive information about Carly's family to the authorities or manipulate a dangerous enemy into targeting Carly's loved ones. Charlotte could easily frame Carly for a crime, using the very skills she learned from her father. When the truth comes out, Valentin will be forced to choose between the woman he loves and the daughter he has sworn to protect. We all know Valentin will always choose Charlotte. The unforeseen fallout of this massive betrayal will leave Carly utterly devastated, realizing too late that marrying Valentin meant inviting a relentless enemy into her home. The marriage would be annulled before the ink on the certificate even dries. Now, let us shift our focus to the second couple standing on the precipice of a wedding, Molly and Cody. On the surface, this relationship feels like a breath of fresh air. I have to admit, I deeply admire the pure, uncomplicated love they seem to share. Cody has proven time and time again that he loves Molly for exactly who she is, not for her prestigious family name or what she can offer him financially. He has been a rock for her during some of her darkest moments, but you guys, we have to look deeper. A solid friendship and genuine affection are wonderful, but are they enough to sustain a marriage when the foundational cracks begin to show? The reality is that their future is riddled with massive challenges, and the psychological motive to ignore these red flags could be their ultimate undoing. The most glaring issue hanging over their heads is Molly's severe fertility trauma. This is not something that just goes away with a hug and a sweet conversation. Molly has endured agonizing physical and emotional pain regarding her inability to carry a child. If Cody decides to marry her, he is aptly choosing a path that might never include biological children of their own. Yes, adoption is always presented as a beautiful alternative, but we have to ask the hard questions. Will adoption truly heal the deep psychological wound Molly carries? Could it be that the grueling, invasive process of adoption only exacerbates her feelings of inadequacy? This implies that their marriage will be immediately tested by a stressful, emotionally draining journey. If they encounter roadblocks in the adoption process, the shattered trust in their own bodies and the universe could easily bleed into their relationship, causing them to pull away from each other. Furthermore, we must consider the immense external pressure coming from Cody's newly discovered family, specifically Mac. Mac is a traditional man who values family legacy above almost anything else. He just recently got his son back, and it is entirely natural for a father to envision a future filled with biological grandchildren carrying on his legacy. While Mac is a kind man, his subconscious desires could manifest as subtle, unintentional pressure on Cody. Every time Mac mentions how wonderful it would be to see a little boy with Cody's eyes, it will act as a dagger to Molly's heart. The unforeseen fallout of Mac's traditional expectations could create a massive psychological burden for Cody, forcing him to suppress his own potential grief over not having biological children just to protect Molly's feelings. That kind of emotional suppression is toxic to a new marriage. And then there's the wild card, Tracy. Never, ever underestimate the destructive power of Tracy when she takes an interest in someone's life. Tracy has taken a very peculiar, almost maternal liking to Cody. She sees potential in him, perhaps viewing him as a rough diamond that she can polish and control. Why would Tracy interfere? Because Tracy thrives on control and establishing dominance? She might view Molly as a weak link, someone who is too emotional or too distracted by her own trauma to properly support a rising star in the corporate or social world. Tracy's ulterior motive is always about securing absolute power and influence for her inner circle, and she has a long history of destroying relationships she deems unworthy. If she decides that Molly is holding Cody back from reaching his true potential, she will not hesitate to launch a calculated move to dismantle their relationship piece by piece. Tracy does not care about true love. She cares about legacy, and she will use every resource at her disposal to ensure Cody aligns with her vision of success, even if it means breaking Molly's heart in the process. This leads us to the potential collapse of this second marriage. Let us examine scenario A for Molly and Cody. In this scenario, the marriage implodes from the inside out due to the suffocating weight of unsaid expectations. It looks like Cody will try so hard to be the perfect, supportive husband that he completely loses his own identity. As Molly obsesses over the adoption process, Cody might secretly mourn the loss of a traditional family, burying his feelings to avoid triggering Molly's insecurities. But secrets always fester. Could it be that Molly senses Cody's hesitation and interprets it as regret? This implies a tragic deterioration of their bond, where they simply drift apart, unable to communicate their deepest fears. The marriage would quietly dissolve, ending not in a fiery explosion, but in a heartbreaking whimper of mutual exhaustion and shattered trust. On the flip side, we have scenario B, where the destruction is entirely external and violently orchestrated. In this scenario, Tracy decides to actively sabotage the union. She might dangle a massive, life-changing opportunity in front of Cody, perhaps a high-ranking position or a massive inheritance, but with strings attached that require him to distance himself from Molly's constant emotional crises. Tracy could subtly manipulate situations to make Molly look unstable or overly demanding in front of Mac, turning Cody's own family against the marriage. It looks like Tracy will use her ultimate calculated move to convince Cody that he is sacrificing his entire future for a woman who will never truly be happy. If Cody even hesitates for a second, Molly's pride will shatter and she will walk away immediately, leaving the marriage in absolute ruins before they even celebrate their first anniversary. So, where does this leave us? If you ask me, the writers are setting up a spectacular double tragedy. We might very well see two beautiful weddings in the near future. We might see Carly in a stunning gown walking toward Valentine, and Molly tearfully exchanging vows with Cody. But I am telling you guys, do not get too attached to the idea of a happily ever after for either of these couples. The psychological motive for sabotage, the lingering trauma, and the sheer volume of external enemies make long-term success highly improbable. Charlotte is a ticking time bomb waiting to destroy Carly, and the heavy burden of fertility struggles combined with Tracy's meddling is a lethal cocktail for Molly and Cody. In this town, love can ignite in a flash of brilliant passion, but it can also burn to the ground just as quickly, leaving nothing but ashes and shattered trust in its wake. We will just have to watch and see which of these doomed marriages collapses first.